In the quietness of the desert, with nothing but the vast sand dunes and open skies surrounding him, a man named Moses found himself drawn to an unusual sight. A bush was ablaze with fire, yet it did not burn up. As he approached, a voice spoke, calling him by name. "Moses, Moses." Trembling with awe, Moses replied, "Here I am." This moment marked the beginning of an extraordinary journey, not just for Moses, but for an entire nation. The call of Moses was more than a personal experience. It was a divine invitation to participate in God's plan for deliverance and justice. The call in the desert, a unique encounter. Moses was no stranger to hardship. He had fled Egypt after defending a fellow Israelite, abandoning the life he once knew in Pharaoh's court. In the wilderness, he became a shepherd, leaving behind any aspirations of greatness. And yet God found him, not in the halls of power, but in the solitude of the desert. God tasked him with a mission that would forever change his life and the lives of his people. God's message was clear. Moses was to return to Egypt and demand the release of the Israelites from bondage. Moses felt unworthy and inadequate, voicing his doubts and concerns, but God reassured him, saying, "I will be with you." This divine promise, paired with God's power, would enable Moses to confront Pharaoh and lead his people to freedom. The call was not about Moses' capabilities, but about God's ability to work through him. Respond now. Why Moses' call matters today. Moses' call is not just an ancient story. It resonates deeply in our world today. Many of us feel unqualified or unworthy when faced with daunting tasks. The problems in our society, such as injustice, inequality, and suffering, can seem overwhelming. Yet, like Moses, we each have a unique role to play in the world's unfolding story. Listening to the call, just as Moses was attentive to the burning bush, we must learn to listen for God's guidance in our own lives. Perhaps it's a small nudge toward helping someone in need, standing up for justice, or leading in our community. God often speaks to us in subtle ways, through a desire to make a difference or a burden we can't ignore. Answering with faith, Moses questioned his worthiness, and many of us do the same. We might feel underprepared or afraid to step into the unknown. But the story of Moses reminds us that when God calls, he also equips. God doesn't ask us to be perfect. He simply asks us to trust him and take the first step. Working toward deliverance, Moses' mission was to lead people to freedom, and we too are called to bring liberation in various forms. Whether it's breaking the chains of poverty, prejudice, or loneliness, we can play a part in bringing hope and healing to those around us. Trusting in God's presence. Moses found courage in the promise of God's presence, a promise that still holds true for us today. In times of fear, we can lean on God's strength, knowing that he goes before us. The legacy of Moses' call, a lasting impact. Moses' obedience brought freedom and a new identity to the Israelites, leading them to a land of promise. His story inspires us to consider what legacies we're building in our own lives. How will our choices impact future generations? Will we be remembered as people who responded to God's call with courage and compassion? Respond now, embracing our call today. The call of Moses challenges each of us to respond. What is God asking of you today? Is there a burning bush in your life, a sign urging you to act, speak, or lead? Embrace the opportunity to make a difference, trusting that God will equip and guide you along the way. Moses' story reminds us that even ordinary people with fears and doubts can be used by God for extraordinary purposes. In our own deserts, our quiet places, and our moments of self-doubt, God still speaks. Will you answer the call? The story of Moses invites us to step forward, saying, "Here I am."